Usha sang to herself as she tripped lightly along the path. Soon she had left the ruins behind. The path dipped steeply down to the valley, and the little town with its straggling bazaar. Usha took her time in the bazaar. She bought soap and matches, spices and sugar. None of these things could be had in the village, where there was no shop, and a new pipe stem for her grandfather's hookah, and an exercise book for Suresh to do his sums in. As an afterthought, she bought him some marbles. Then she went to a mochi's shop to have her mother's slippers repaired. The mochi was busy, so she left the slippers with him and said she'd be back in half an hour. She had 2 rupees of her own saved up, and she used the money to buy herself a necklace of amber-colored beads from an old Tibetan lady who sold charms and trinkets from a tiny shop at the end of the bazaar. Usha met her Aunt Lakshmi, who took her home for tea. Usha spent an hour in Aunt Lakshmi's little flat above the shops, listening to her aunt talk about the ache in her left shoulder and the stiffness in her joints. She drank 2 cups of sweet hot tea, and when she looked out of the window, she saw that dark clouds had gathered over the mountains. Usha ran to the cobbler's and collected her mother's slippers. The shopping bag was full. She slung it over her shoulder. She slung it over her shoulder and set out for the village. Work in pairs. Read the story above and find the answers to these questions. இருவராக இந்த கதையை படித்து பின்வரும் வினாக்களுக்கு விடை காணவும். What were the children doing beside the stone wall? அந்த கல்லாலான சுவற்றுக்கருகில் குழந்தைகள் என்ன செய்து கொண்டிருந்தார்கள்? What did Suresh ask Usha? Why? சுரேஷ் உஷாவிடம் என்ன கேட்டான், ஏன் கேட்டான்? Who told the children the story about the ghosts on Hounted Hill? அந்த Hounted Hill மீது உள்ள பேய்கள் பற்றி யார் கூறியது? What did Usha see while walking to the bazaar? அவள் பசாருக்கு சென்றபோது எதை பார்த்தாள்? What did Usha see? உஷா எதை பார்த்தாள்? Glossary. Moaned, make a long low sound. Haunted, possessed. Ruins, decayed, collapsed building or place. Terrible, fearful. Saddle, low point on a ridge between 2 summits. Crumbling, breaking apart into small pieces. Scuttled, ran with short, quick steps. Whistling thrush, a small singing bird, straggling, spreading out in different directions. Section 2. Take turns and read this section aloud. Strangely, the wind had dropped. The trees were still, not a leaf moved. The crickets were silent in the grass. The crows flew round in a circle, then settled down for the night in an oak tree. I must get home before dark, said Usha to herself as she hurried along the path, but already the sky was darkening. The clouds, black and threatening, looked over Haunted Hill. This was March, the month for storms. A deep rumble echoed over the hills, and Usha felt the first heavy drop of rain hit her cheek. She had no umbrella with her. The weather had seemed so fine just a few hours ago. Now all she could do was tie an old scarf over her head and pull her shawl tight across her shoulders. Holding the shopping bag close to her body, she quickened her pace. She was almost running, but the raindrops were coming down faster now. Big, heavy pellets of rain. A sudden flash of lightning lit up the hill. The ruins stood out in clear outline. Then all was dark again. Night had fallen. I won't get home before the storm breaks, thought Usha. I'll have to shelter in the ruins. She could only see a few feet ahead, but she knew the path well and she began to run. Suddenly the wind sprang up again and brought the rain with a rush against her face. It was cold, stinging rain. She could hardly keep her eyes open. The wind grew in force. It hummed and whistled. Usha did not have to fight against it. It was behind her now and helped her along up the steep path and on to the brow of the hill. There was another flash of lightning, followed by a peal of thunder. Peal of thunder. The ruins looked up before her, grim and forbidding. She knew there was a corner where a piece of old roof remained. It would give some shelter. It would be better than trying to go on in the dark, in the howling wind. She had only to stay off the path to go over a rocky cliff edge. Hoo, 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 hold the wind. She saw the wild plum tree swaying bent double, its foliage thrashing against the ground. The broken walls did little to stop the wind. Usha found her way into the ruined building, helped by her memory of the place and the constant flicker of lightning. She began moving along the wall, hoping to reach the sheltered corner. She placed her hands flat against the stones and moved sideways. Her hand touched something soft and furry. She gave a startled cry and took her hand away. Her cry was answered by another cry, half snarl, half screech, and something leaped away in the darkness. It was only a wild cat. Usha realized this when she heard it. The cat lived in the ruins and she had often seen it. But for a moment she had been very frightened. Now she moved quickly along the wall until she heard the rain drumming on the remnant of the tin roof.